That one was, I just wasn't prepared. I had bumped up against things in the past, but this one was stronger, better, more powerful than what I'd ever dealt with. I've had a little I've got some stuff. I've got some Egyptian artifacts that move and all that regularly, and all that little paranormal stuff. You kind of take that for granted after a
Yes.
while. But when something big and bad chooses to, and I'm saying really big and bad, chooses to come after you at home for a specific purpose of injuring you, it changes some of that perspective. And
Well,
you
it
just,
changes your whole ball game.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's a whole different kettle of fish right there. I'm just
yeah, and
full of all these little sayings, right? But it
yeah.
is.
Well, and that's why I
It's a
mentioned before.
dimensional shift in your reality.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned before. The furba that I have, the supposedly the cursed one, that's the big cannon that I carry with me in the car, but don't bring out. And the belief there, the reason I do, is because based on at least past experiences with haunted locations and with other alleged demonic activity, it tends to distract or to discourage them from getting involved. And so if I'm going on a real case like that, I'll keep it in the car to discourage it from being part of the car and following me, or hopefully to discourage it from wanting to come after me. But that was just a response to, because when that happened, I wasn't prepared for it. And um, since then, that's one of the things I do. I've got every one of the uh, entryways. I have some blessed, crosses and things like that. I've got Pope John Paul II. I got a blessed cross from him many, many moons ago. And so, you just do what you can, the best you can, to try to protect yourself and the people you care about.
Absolutely, you do. How did you get a blessed cross from Pope John II?
Well, I'm a traveler.
Yes, you
I
are.
I used to go to
You knew I
Italy.
had to know.
Yeah, I used to go to Italy regularly, and as part of one of those many, many, many trips, um, there was a chance to get a brief audience. And as part of what they do is they give you trinkets. And so it's just a tiny cross, but it came with a little certificate. This cross is blessed by Pope John Paul II, and all that neat stuff. So,
That is neat.
and, I love Italy. I used to go literally about every other Christmas, and the Vatican is a bizarre place. I think God moved out of there a few years back, but it is, in some ways it is so amazing. The Vatican Museum is mind blowing for someone like me.
I know it must be. I can't even imagine what all is there. What's
Well,
your
one
favorite
of the things.
piece?
Well, actually, one of my favorite pieces is a piece that I actually have one of them too. Um, I
Of course you
the
do. Tell
I
me
haven't
what it
mentioned
is.
I haven't mentioned to the listeners, but I have a pretty extensive artifact collection.
Yes.
I've got around 5,000 pieces in the collection. The earliest piece is a Cro-Magnon tattoo scalpel-looking device, but I have Roman, I have Mayan, Incan, Egyptian, all throughout. One of the things I have, and I got this long before I was, interested in the demonology aspects. I have a 5th century exorcism cross, and I was walking through the Vatican Museum, looking through the different things there, and they have that exact same style exorcism cross on display.
How interesting. I
So,
wonder what those odds were.
um, pretty astronomical actually, because the particular cross I have is gold, theirs was gold, and they're pretty much identical. Mine's a little bit more beaten up than theirs, but I just was amazed. So that blew me away. But I'm a real history nerd. I love artifacts. I love history. I love learning about them. and I acquire whenever I get an opportunity. But I tell people that I'm probably going to end up being poor, but I'm going to have a bazillion dollars worth of artifacts that go to the museum.
Well, you know what? That's joy.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with what gives you joy. Or, in my opinion, there's not. I mean, that's actually a fairly innocuous addiction, right?
Yeah, and in my case, one of the reasons I've acquired so many artifacts is they're all going to go to a museum. In theory, the Emory Carlos Museum over in Atlanta that has the Egyptian mummies is going to get the collection on loan permanently on my death. If there isn't a certain other person who will remain nameless who's considering opening a museum in a certain city that I visit occasionally, not to name names, but if that museum doesn't eventually open, they all go to Emory University. And I just actually I guess about 3 months ago, I was in Atlanta and I bumped into one of the archaeology professors in Egyptology there. And so we were like exchanging information. I was showing her my stuff and she's like, "Oh, I need this in my collection. I need this in the museum." I'm like, "You'll eventually get it."
Just don't rush it. Yeah. I think that's so cool.
Well, again, it's just stupid luck. When I was in Egypt, for instance, my driver Hasham knew a black market Egyptologist or Egyptian artifact dealer, and this guy actually he had a compound with guys with machine guns and all that protecting him, but it was down near the old capital of Memphis, same name as the city in Tennessee.
Yes.
But as farmers would till the ground to plant, they would find millions of dollars worth of artifacts, and they would sell them to him for $1 a piece. He, in turn, would then, sell them to wherever. And after a few years of getting his confidence, one day I was visiting, and he showed me his secret reserve. He had a hidden center room in his home. He opened it, and there were antiquities that the Egyptian Museum in Cairo would die for. There was literally a gold statue as tall as I am. I'm 6'3". This statue was at least that tall. Solid gold. So amazing stuff.
And the Egyptian Department of Antiquities takes that very seriously.
Oh, very, very, very seriously.
I mean, I got the opportunity to speak with an Egyptologist who's Egyptian, obviously, in that case. But when I was in California last year, and he was caught in, I forget the name of it, but a sandstorm, and literally caught like out in the middle of things. And when it was over, when they were able to get mobile again, there were bones that had been uncovered. He said that there's bones all around the pyramids anyway that,
Yep.
And, they just covered it back up because they didn't want to have to go through all of the stress and the paperwork and everything that comes up relevant to a human set of remains being uncovered, and you're the person that finds it. So you just don't do anything with it.
Yep.
Because it's a big, hairy deal.
Well, and it's even worse since the Islamic Springs, and
yes.
the change in the political structure in Egypt has gotten a lot worse.
It's to the point where
my driver, Hasham, won't. He tells me every time I say I'm considering coming to Egypt, he's like, "Don't. It's not safe." And this is a guy who, for me to be there for a month, he earns a year's worth of income. And he's telling me not to come. So that's how bad it is there.
That's so tragic. There's so many things there. And, as you've watched this rising of the Taliban and now, ISIS, they're destroying all these beautiful antiquities when they, for no other reason than they can. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. And, it's the history that we lose. That's the importance. Objects are just objects, but the forgetting who we are as a race, who we are as humanity, that's the real tragedy of the loss.
It is.
Human beings have been speaking, according to some science, for 300,000 years. The oldest writing we have is a little over, that we can read anyway, is a little over 5,000 years old. So 295,000 years of our existence has already been lost.
Yes.
Why do we want to destroy the remaining 5,000?
I know. When I started researching and started speaking with people who, from the collection side, do what you do, and the traveling and just the experiencers of this history, I became more frustrated relevant to that. Because no matter what, you need a record. Every civilization that's gone before, we don't have anything on them. Other than we keep finding more, the further we dig, the older the civilizations are that we're coming across. And that happens daily. And It's getting very sad that we don't know anything about them or what took them out, why they're, why they didn't find a way to leave something. And I don't want us to be the same way for those that come researching us later. I'm glad that you have your collection that you're going to leave to Emory so that will at least be protected and preserved.
That is the hope.
Yeah.
The sad part is, unfortunately, most of the collection, when I've acquired it, it's been out of context. So it's of no use to the archaeologist beyond, just the most basic perspective. But
they may be a little confused.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, for instance, as you're looking at these pieces, I look at it as though it's better if I'm going to get it to a museum than somebody who doesn't respect it wanting to do damage to it, or
yes,
it just rotting in the ground. And for me, it's a way also to touch history, and hopefully somebody see it and get inspired to do something else with it.
I have questions about that, but we're on our break. Don't let me forget, I wanted to talk to you about the things that were left. And This is going to be just a little 2-minute break, and we will be right back. Thank you for being here, and we'll be right back with Kyl.
listening to WBH.